Why people choose not to vaccinate their children?
We're in a very privileged position to be able to avoid vaccines.
Sounding the alarm, health officials warn of a dangerously high number of unvaccinated students actually, in some Toronto schools. A CBC Toronto analysis has found more than 10% of students are unvaccinated in a dozen publicly funded schools in the city. All 12 are alternative schools, and the students receive vaccination exemptions for religious or non-medical reasons. As Farah Morelli tells us, health officials warn that percentage puts kids at risk for the spread of contagious diseases.
Good job!
At 11 months old, Scarlett Ronbeck is a healthy, happy, and playful baby.
Oh.
But it wasn't always that way.
Oh! We almost lost her a couple times, and yeah, it was pretty rocky for a while there.
At 7 weeks, Scarlett developed a bad cough, then started turning blue. She was rushed to hospital, where doctors diagnosed her with whooping cough, just 5 days before she was scheduled to be vaccinated.
It was kind of surreal because your mind doesn't go to a disease like that you had thought had been eradicated decades ago. Yay!
Because of what happened to her daughter, Rebecca Stonham has become an outspoken advocate for mandatory vaccines, especially school-aged kids. But CBC Toronto has found that more than 10% of kids at a dozen schools in Toronto have been exempt from vaccinations because of religious or non-medical reasons. All 12 are alternative schools. 7 of the 12 are in downtown Toronto. The school with the highest percentage of students that are unvaccinated because of those exemptions, Da Vinci School, at more than 36%. The second highest, Alpha Alternative Junior School on Brant Street, with more than 22%.
As a parent, does that concern you? I mean, not really. I understand why people choose not to vaccinate their children.
I don't know, I just think life is full of risks, and I don't think it's a big issue, personally.
Though the percentage might not concern those parents, public health officials say that's dangerously high.
If we had an exemption rate of, say, 10% across all schools in Toronto, we could definitely see outbreaks of measles. And we've seen that in California, we've seen that in New York.
Federal, provincial, and municipal health authorities all agree vaccines are critical in preventing the spread of infectious diseases like measles. But they say misinformation on the dangers of vaccines persist. This rally held at Queen's Park was in support of a Superior Court challenge against mandatory vaccines.
They do cause injury. Our government pretends that they don't.
A lot of it is false truths, and they've understood it and take it to heart, and they've chosen not to vaccinate their children. And so that's why what we're really trying to do is to get at the 20% of parents that are hesitant.
You want to play with your tractor?
Meanwhile, Stonham says she'll continue telling her story in hopes of changing a few hesitant minds.
It would definitely be to think about your actions because there's more than just your children. I can guarantee you that if any parent was in the situation that I was in, they would probably have a little bit of a different outlook on vaccines.
Farah Morelli joins us now with more on these numbers. And Farah, there's talk about actually getting rid of the non-medical exemption for this.
There is, Dwight, and the reason why is that over the past 10 to 12 years, the number of parents actually seeking these exemptions has increased. This is according to Toronto Public Health. So last fall, the city's chief medical health officer actually put forward a recommendation to the province to scrap these non-medical exemptions, saying we need to do something before we hit, quote, dangerously high levels of students who are unvaccinated. So we did reach out to the Minister of Health about this, and what she told us was that there's no plans right now to actually change the current regime or the way that we administer vaccines in the province. However, she did comment today about the fact that the top 12 schools that have the highest rates of kids that are not vaccinated are alternative schools.
Would need to know more about what is particularly happening in those alternative schools and why the vaccinations are not being at a high enough level. But it is something that's a concern to all of us as part of public health.
I should add that we did reach out to the TDSB about this, and they did not want to comment. They directed all their questions to Toronto Public Health. But, Dwight, we still don't really know why these numbers are so high at the alternative schools.
Yeah. To figure that out. Thank you for that, Farah.
You're welcome.
It is the first official day of Ontario's cell phone ban in classrooms, but if you ask your kids about it tonight, They probably didn't notice any changes at many schools. Now, many GTA school boards have already had similar policies in place for years now. Shannon Martin explains.
And how are we doing things here?
They are everywhere, cell phones inside and outside the classroom. Now, a province-wide crackdown. But judging from these kids, you'd never know it.
I didn't even know. I forgot that today was when. Wait, was it today that? Yeah.
So you haven't noticed a big dramatic change today?
I haven't noticed a change at all, really.
The Ontario government first announced the rules back in March, saying a survey of parents, teachers, and students found 97% in favor of restricting cell phones in some way. Under the new rules, mobile devices, including phones and tablets, are only allowed in the classroom for educational purposes as decided by a teacher, health and medical reasons, or to support special education needs.
For a number of years, what we have said is that we encourage the use of technology in the classroom, but the appropriate use of technology in the classroom.
The province's move, he says, only formalizes a policy TDSB has followed for the last 8 years. In statements to CBC Toronto, Peel, Durham, and Halton school boards say the same. Essentially, nothing's changed. Students there won't notice anything new.
It was a disjointed policy that existed under the former government.
Education Minister Stephen Lecce agrees many teachers have already been practicing the protocol. Today just ensures all schools are on the same page.
We want to make sure that irrespective if you're in a public or Catholic school, English and French, there's one standard to ensure that young people are focused on learning and not on their cell phones.
As for enforcing this all, that's up to the school boards. TDSB says it's not in the business of taking phones away. So, like they've been doing for years, if teachers catch kids distracted by their devices, they'll ask them to put them in their backpacks. Shannon Martin, CBC News, Toronto.
Ontario's elementary teachers could be in a legal strike position within a few weeks. Lisa Shing is live at the Sheridan Centre where teachers and the union met with the province today. Lisa, this latest move comes after ETFO members voted 98% in favor of possible strike action.
That was just on Friday, Dwight, and today this was the first time the province as well as the union met with a conciliator for talks here at the Sheridan Centre. But this afternoon, the president of the Elementary Teachers Union said talks weren't going anywhere, so it's filed for a no board report, which means once it's issued, it could put teachers in a legal strike position within 17 days. Here's what Hammond told us today.
After that strike vote being released, there was no progress at this table, very little progress on any of the key issues. And we're not going to wait another 2 weeks or another month. We need the government, as I've said, quite frankly, to be serious. If they're serious about the future of publicly funded education and students in the province, get serious at the table.
So some of those key issues for the union are a guarantee of full-day kindergarten, money for special needs students, and of course, just this week, the government also introduced a bill that would cap public sector wage increases at 1% for 3 years, so that is definitely an issue as well.
So, Lisa, we've heard the education minister in the past say he's committed to avoiding any kind of strike. So what did Stephen Lecce say today?
Well, Lecce definitely said he was disappointed in the way things have unfolded today, that he's still committed to keeping kids in the classrooms, but the union has to meet the province halfway. He also addressed the issue of compensation in negotiations with this union.
There is a issue or a concern in the context of compensation. I mean, that is the truth. And I think by their own admission, it'd be hard for them to disagree with that premise. They are requesting a significant increase with respect to what we're offering. And my position is, and I think one shared by at least a critical mass of parents, is if we're going to put more money in the system, I'd rather go into the front lines.
So at this point, Ontario's secondary teachers could also be in a legal strike position around the same time as elementary teachers. And that means that's all of the province's English public school teachers, Dwight.
Thank you, Lisa. After narrowly avoiding a strike that would have shut down 24 school boards, Ontario's education workers now have a tentative agreement with the province.
We pushed back a great deal of concessions and also got the government to make a major investment. But I think we need to also appreciate the fact that we have the lowest paid people in the education system, and their wages are not keeping up with inflation.
The deal did not pass unanimously. Around 79% of the 55,000 Canadian Union of Public Employees members voted in favor. Under the agreement, the workers will get a 1% wage increase each year over 3 years.
What's good for Toronto is good for Ontario, and what's good for Ontario is good for Canada. What's good for Canada is good for Ontario.
Did you follow that? Doug Ford held his first Toronto press conference since before the federal election today. We'll talk to our Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley about why the Premier was pushing a message of national unity. That's coming up.
This is absolutely ridiculous. People are hijacking the highway for their own personal adventure, their own thrills.
A dangerous and reckless stunt carried out on Highway 409 near Pearson Airport. They shut down a busy highway so they could do donuts. The video surfaced on social media showing the incident on the busy 409. Now police want to identify the people who carried out the stunt. Greg Ross has more.
This cell phone video shows a white sports car doing donuts in the middle of Highway 409.
It's dangerous and reckless, and it's criminal.
Just steps away from the car, a number of people gathered to watch from the side of the highway, leaving their cars to block all lanes of traffic on the eastbound 409 just before the exit to Highway 27.
People are hijacking the highway for their own personal adventure, their own thrills.
Police are now telling us they believe this happened early Sunday morning. That's when calls came in that a part of Highway 409 was blocked by several cars. It happened on the part of the 409 where you see that curve in the highway here just behind me.
It's a controlled access highway. Traffic's going at full speed around a blind curve late at night. You're not expecting any slowdowns or any interruptions. No warnings at all.
It doesn't appear that anyone was hurt, but OPP Constable Kerry Schmidt says the outcome could have been far worse.
Had traffic been approaching that area and ran into the back of stopped traffic unexpectedly, and people are going to get hurt, people are going to die because of this.
The person behind the wheel of this car is facing the most severe charges, including stunt driving. But the people who got out of their cars to watch could be facing charges as well. Schmidt says they also put themselves in danger.
And one slip of the gas, one slip of the foot, and you can send that car flying, careening into a wall, into a parked car, or into pedestrians that are sitting there watching it.
This is not the first time something like this has happened. In 2017, a mob of motorcyclists blocked off a number of highways in the GTA while they performed stunts. That was also recorded by some of the participants, and dozens of them were charged. Police have already received a number of tips about this weekend's incident, including some from people who say they were there at the time. Police are hopeful they will lead to the identity of the driver and anyone else who helped organize this. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
And a man is dead after a shooting in Etobicoke this afternoon.
I heard 3 or 4 shots, bam, bam, bam.
Broad daylight, lunchtime. Yeah, lots of people around. Yeah, frightening.
Toronto police were called to this plaza near the Queensway and Highway 427 around 1 o'clock. Police say multiple shots were fired and a suspect left the plaza in a vehicle. Now, the victim was taken to hospital in an emergency run where he later died. Police are asking anyone with information to come forward. And a man is under arrest in connection with the shooting of 5 teens at a building in the Black Creek and Tuthui area. Last Wednesday's incident was caught on security camera. The victims, ranging in age from 16 to 18, were shot in the hallway of a low-rise building on Clearview Heights. They are all expected to survive. Now, 20-year-old Andre Cunningham of Toronto is now facing a number of charges, including 5 counts of attempted murder. Police say their investigation is ongoing. And just a half a kilometer from where those teens were shot, an apartment building was riddled with bullets. It happened shortly before 9:30 last night on Martha Eaton Way near Tuthui and Black Creek. Witnesses said several men got out of a dark-colored truck and opened fire on an empty car. They then fled in their truck. There were no injuries reported.
War is always, and it starts not always with a bullet, it starts with hate.
And I think that's the main focus I fight against: hate.
He's the grandson of a man who was the longest-serving commandant at Auschwitz, and now he's dedicating his life to raise awareness about neo-Nazi groups. We'll hear from him coming up a little later in the show. He hasn't done a news conference in Toronto since August, so it was a big deal when Premier Ford stepped back in front of the cameras today to face questions on a wide range of topics. Our Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley was there. Mike joins us now. And Mike, you had lots to ask the Premier about, but he was quite keen to talk about national unity.
Well, Dwight, in the wake of the federal election, Premier Doug Ford is trying to say that he's somebody who can bring the country together, that is, with a little help from his friends, being the other premiers. However, there are some questions about whether this is simply a distraction.
The new transit deal between the province and Toronto was the topic of this event, but what Premier Doug Ford is trying to ride right now is the national unity train.
I've never seen this country so divided, but we have to stay united.
Since the federal election sent Justin Trudeau back to power, but with no Liberal seats in Alberta and Saskatchewan, we're hearing a lot about Western Canada from Ontario's Conservative Premier.
I was out there, I heard it on the streets. People in Alberta, people in Saskatchewan. Keep in mind, the people of Alberta are transferring $20 billion to the federal government, and they just feel like they're being ignored.
During the federal campaign, Ford was all but invisible. He deflected all questions about the election, holding just 2 news conferences, both in Northern Ontario. Now he's offering to host a gathering of premiers in Toronto to talk unity, and he's holding an olive branch to Trudeau.
You saw the Prime Minister over the last few months. That just rolls off my back. I'm going to work with him because people expect us to work together.
Ford's getting praise for his new approach from Toronto's mayor.
Premier Ford, by taking the initiative he is in the last few days, is playing the role that Ontario premiers must play and have historically played in holding this country together.
But not everyone is buying it.
I don't see how the way that Mr. Ford is behaving is actually helping Canada at all.
NDP leader Andrea Horwath questions Ford's newfound concern for national unity.
Again, I don't think that a premier that's taking the federal government to court on carbon pricing is very, very cohesive in terms of bringing Canada.
Only last year, Ford was threatening to boycott a First Minister's meeting over the agenda proposed by Trudeau. But today for Ford, all is good.
What's good for Toronto is good for Ontario, and what's good for Ontario is good for Canada. What's good for Canada is good for Ontario.
Now, some critics are saying that Doug Ford is simply trying to portray himself as concerned about a national unity in an attempt to change the channel from his own government's problems. Dwight?
Thank you, Mike. You promised that Sunday wasn't going to be too bad, Colette, and a whole bunch of us got a whole bunch of leaves raked up on Sunday. Thank you.
That's great. You're welcome. You got some work done. That's lovely. And you know what else was lovely today? That we pushed into double digits, 12 degrees for our high. Now, as for what happens after this, we've got some big changes coming in our weather. And it looks like this. Yes, a few showers possible this evening, maybe in towards tomorrow morning, but I actually think we'll be drying out. But Tuesday, tomorrow is a real transition day. So temperatures starting to come down before much colder air is going to move in tomorrow night into Wednesday morning and then stick around for several days. And I mean way below seasonal in terms of those temperatures. So enjoy the double digits. We're not going to be seeing these for a while. I'm going to take another look too. 11 degrees right now in Toronto. St. Catharines at 12 degrees. The winds have been a little bit breezy from the south-southwest today, but they're sort of starting to ease off. There are a few of those showers I was talking about on our radar imagery, and you can see some heavier stuff. It's really more towards southern parts of the Golden Horseshoe through here. And that keeps carrying on through, and we get into a drying trend and some sunshine by tomorrow afternoon. Not the case off to the northwest of us, where there's going to be a little bit of a mix. But into Wednesday, another system's going to come in. I want to fill you in on that one. We may see some wet snow into Thursday. Light stuff, but still. Overnight tonight, 6 degrees, 7 tomorrow afternoon. So very little change, Dwight, but then the temperature will be plummeting. How far, how low will it go? I'll tell you coming up.
We'll see you in a bit. Thanks, Colette.
Sure.
Students at Northern Heights Secondary School had a very special guest today, the grandson of the man who was the Nazi commandant at Auschwitz. Raina Huss is on a speaking tour warning young people about the rise of neo-Nazi groups.
This book, called People in Auschwitz, written by a survivor, Hermann Langbein. My grandmother took that book away from my mother, out of the bookshelf, and what you see right now are the inscriptions of my grandmother where she said, "He is a liar. He has no clue. Auschwitz never existed in that way, and it was never an extermination camp, it was only a prison for criminal, for nothing else. No slaves or something like that, no." So she hides and lies and denies everything what happens at Auschwitz. And she called Auschwitz herself her paradise. So if Auschwitz would be a paradise, I will not know how hell will look like. So, and then I grow up with all that stuff around me, and I became in some ways really, sorry for the word, pissed off. I wrote and made my research and found more and more about the family, what they kept in secret. And then the family starts to hate me, really hate me. They hate me until today, and they will hate me until eternity, and it's good. So, and they always said I opened Pandora's box. I took all the secrets of the family out in public. And I think in one way I'm really proud about that. Well, I'm the only one in the whole Huss family, which are right now around 85 people. I'm the only one who speaks openly about the crimes of my grandfather.
Today's talk at Northern Secondary is one of 3 schools on Rainer's very first Toronto speaking tour.
As of today, effective today, I am no longer leader of the Green Party of Canada.
Stepping down but not bowing out. Elizabeth May announces she is no longer leader of the Green Party, but she'll stay on as the leader in the House. We'll bring you more from Ottawa right after the break.
The weather update is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Elizabeth May has stepped down as leader of the Green Party, but she remains a member of Parliament. May announced the move earlier today. The party will pick a new leader next October. Julie Van Duzen is in our parliamentary bureau and joins us now with more on this. So, why is she leaving now, Julie?
Well, I think it's a multitude of reasons. The job is grueling, Dwight. She's been doing it for 13 years, mostly on her own. It's only recently that she's picked up 2 more seats. Then there's her personal life. She just got married a few months ago to John Kidder. He was on stage with her. Often she went back and held his hand and said she wants to spend more time with him. Then she talked about her daughter, Kate, that she'd promised her that this would be the last election, that she would be Green Party leader. Kate has been part of her political life since she was a little kid. And she said, I always keep my promises. Then we have a minority parliament. She said, it probably won't last long. So if I'm going to pull the plug, best to do it ASAP. Take a listen.
When we look at what needs to be done to build for the next election, you can't postpone the decision. It just makes sense. So it was a combination of, yes, I promised Kate, for sure I wasn't going to run again, but the question was, when do you then step down? Frankly, the sooner the better.
So, Julie, any indication at this point what the future direction of the Green Party is?
Well, it's hard to say because she's been the face of the Green Party since 2006, but there has been some pressure on her to go more left. For example, the leader of the Green Party in Quebec wanted her to take a harder position on the oil sands. He wants to go for the leadership. But May said, look, there's a lot of people that would be good leaders, Indigenous women, women of color, and even old white guys. So take a listen to her at the news conference.
Although I want to engage people of color and LGBTQ Canadians and Indigenous Canadians, I have nothing against white men, even old white men. I just married one. So this is the thing.
So you will still see her in the Commons. She still will be an MP and parliamentary leader in the Commons and plans to run again in the next election, but that is it for her as Green Party leader.
That was very funny. We're going to miss her wit. Thank you for that, Julie.
You're welcome.
I think it's like being part of giving them a chance for a new life. and we've tried our best. And I get very emotional about this.
This Toronto church has been giving new hope to refugees for many years. Coming up, we'll meet the very first families to be sponsored by that church 4 decades ago. That story after the break. Police in Vaughan have released a video that shows a shootout happening in the middle of a residential neighborhood. It happened on Friday just before 2 a.m. outside a home being used as a short-term rental. The video shows two men getting out of a four-door white sedan and firing more than 20 shots down the street. A third suspect gets out of the passenger side and into the driver's seat. The three then drive away. In a statement, York Police Eric Jolliffe said, "It's amazing that no one was injured or killed given the number of shots that were recklessly fired. We continue to see that there are people using short-term rental houses for parties, and their guests are bringing handguns and violence into York Region. They are asking anyone with information to come forward." The suspect in a stabbing rampage at a Halloween party in the Annex last week was scheduled to be in court today. One of the charges against 19-year-old Jacob Alves has been upgraded to second-degree murder after one of the victims died from his injuries over the weekend. 19-year-old Ferdows Nabizada was admitted to hospital with critical injuries last Thursday. Investigators say there was a fight inside the party in a frat house on Madison Avenue and that the suspect was thrown out. He then tried to get back in but was turned away, and police say that's when the suspect took out a knife. 3 people were stabbed. Along with the second-degree murder charge, Alves is also facing attempted murder and aggravated assault charges. Is the U.S. still a safe country for asylum seekers? That is the key question being considered today in a Canadian court. The answer could impact the Safe Third Country agreement between the two countries, which says people seeking asylum must apply in the first country they land. Linda Ward has more.
They are looking for a place where they can feel safe.
These groups have gathered outside the federal court here in downtown Toronto to say that they believe that the United States is no longer a safe country for asylum seekers. They're protesting the Safe Third Country Agreement, which basically says that if asylum seekers land in the United States, they can't then ask for asylum here in Canada. They have to ask for asylum in the first place where they arrive. Now, we have been speaking with some of the protesters here in line today, and Anne, you've come out here today. Why are you here?
We're here to protect the rights of refugees.
You've been working with refugees, you said, for 31 years?
Yes.
Why is this so important to you to get rid of this agreement?
Because refugees need protection. And refugees coming to our borders, they often have very, very powerful refugee cases, and they need to have the opportunity to have the protection of Canada. We made this banner, and all the words on this banner are what we feel. We need to protect refugees at our border, and so we must uphold our laws and protect refugees.
Thank you, Anne. And we also spoke with one of the main litigants in this case, the Canadian Council of Refugees. Here's what they told us about why they wanted to mount this challenge today.
That agreement, initially penned in the immediate aftermath of 9/11 and implemented in 2004, creates a situation where refugees are being returned to situations of serious risk. Particular classes of vulnerable refugees in particular end up in detention, languishing there for extraordinary periods of time in egregious conditions.
And they're one of 3 advocacy groups that successfully challenged this back in 2007, but that was overturned on appeal because the court said that they had not heard from anyone who was directly affected. But in court today, we've been hearing the often harrowing stories of the litigants that have come forward in this case. Now, in the recent federal election, the Liberals said that they were going to try to modernize this pact, but in the meantime, this case will be before the courts here in Toronto all week. We anticipate the ruling will take much longer than that. Linda Ward, CBC News, Toronto.
This year marks the 40th anniversary of private refugee sponsorship in Canada. It is something one Toronto church has been involved in since the very beginning. Over the weekend, more than 100 people the church has sponsored gathered together for a celebration. Kelda Ewan was there and has their story.
It was a special morning at Islington United. Those making their way to the front, all former refugees sponsored by the church. Among them, members of the Luong family, the first ones to arrive back in 1979. The family of 7 fleeing post-war Vietnam.
Father have business and working is in for printing, and suddenly everything is gone.
In the late 70s, thousands of Vietnamese refugees were clambering into boats in search of a better life. The Canadian government, under then Prime Minister Joe Clark, responded with its first private refugee sponsorship agreement. Ken and Suzanne Luong were the second family sponsored by the church. The journey wasn't easy. They spent 1 week on a boat to Hong Kong, 2 small kids in tow, and Suzanne also pregnant at the time.
When I sit in there, I don't think I have tomorrow.
But they made it, and awaiting them, a new life.
When we come to the airport in Toronto, so we got a big surprise. A lot of people come to welcome us there.
Church member Lori Beth Page was there from the beginning.
We, the private sponsors, were totally responsible for 1 year in every way for the family, their finances, their education, their furniture in their apartments, and so on.
40 years later, she's still part of the team helping to sponsor newcomers like Ben Kabanga and Pauline Beitu, refugees from the Congo who arrived in 2017. 2 years after arriving, Pauline says the church still checks up on them.
They always visit us, they always help us, they helped us move to our new apartment.
This work reminds the community that it is about an extended welcome, that it's not even having our faith in common, it's our humanity that ties us together.
It's very special. I think it's like being part of, giving them a chance for a new life. and we've tried our best, and I get very emotional about this.
It's a family. It's a family.
The church has sponsored a total of 105 people from 13 countries over the past 4 decades. Adding to this wall, a family from Syria will be arriving later this year. Kelda Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
The air quality in one of the world's most polluted cities has become so poor, officials say breathing there is like smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. Toxicity levels in New Delhi are more than 10 times higher than safety limits. As Chris Brown reports, Indian officials are taking unprecedented steps to try to protect human health.
An enormous, putrid white cloud has enveloped New Delhi, causing people to wheeze and choke on air that could cause permanent lung damage.
Like it's suffocating to breathe also sometimes, and inflammation in the nostrils and all, and then eyes also. Like it kind of burns.
Delhi's awful air is notorious, but this November appears to be the worst ever, mostly because of farmers in the north burning their fields after the harvest. That smoke creates a toxic stew of gases, which gets blown not just over the capital, New Delhi, but also to India's most visited tourist attraction, the Taj Mahal in nearby Agra. Today, crews resorted to spraying the pollution off trees near the World Heritage Site, and there was even an air purification truck driving around to suck pollutants out of the smog, though both measures smacked of desperation. The city's top engineer said the truck was being dispatched to the worst spots, and he insisted it was making a difference. As a further measure, private cars are being restricted, with even and odd-numbered license plates being permitted on alternating days. But local climate policy experts cast doubt on the effectiveness of that tactic too.
Of course, it's ineffective in dealing with air pollution as an issue. You know, if air pollution was solely due to the vehicular traffic, then this would be a solution. Right now, it cannot be a solution because motorized private transport has a very small share in the whole pie.
Using farm machinery instead of burning to get rid of the crop leftovers is widely accepted as essential to solving Delhi's wintertime smog problem. The government is subsidizing some farmers to buy the new equipment, but its benefits may take years to be felt. And even then, it won't do anything about industrial pollution, which is also a huge contributor to India's dirty air. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
Frozen is a musical that had every child around the world singing the same song. Now the much-anticipated sequel to the Disney hit is set to hit theaters later this month, 6 years after the original. Has it been 6 years already? Eli is on the red carpet at Scotiabank Theatre. And Eli, the stars are out for the premiere tonight. You've got somebody special with you right now.
Okay. That's right. Hi, we are live. Look, Elsa herself, Adina Menzel. Thank you so much for joining us. You're live with CBC Toronto. I hear your character lets it go a little more in this sequel. Can you tell me something about that?
Yeah, she's not apologetic anymore about her power and her magic. She's actually really stepping into the light, and she goes on a journey to figure out how she's gotten all of this power and why she has it and her purpose in life. But she's not apologetic. She's actually celebrating it.
How much fun is it to play someone like that just like lets go? Hard to avoid that phrase.
It's hard to avoid that phrase. The whole experience is just terrific. We love being in this family, the creative family, the Disney, the writers, the directors. It's really wonderful to go to work all the time. You work together for a long time on an animated film, and you get close, and I'm in awe of the whole process, the animators, what they do, the artistry in that, and so it's a real gift in my life, this entire Frozen phenomenon.
Well, and to be able to sing a song like Let It Go, that's a gift. And to be given something like that for an artist, and you've sung a number of anthems, is there a secret to a great anthem? Like, do you let go more? Do you release your inhibitions, or do you know where to rein it in? Have you figured that out yet?
No, you just surround yourself with really great writers and composers, and you're saying something. Oh, and you hope for the best, and you just have to put yourself in a room where people challenge you and lift you up and are super talented at what they do.
I know it's impossible to duplicate that, but is there a number you're hoping will maybe compete for the notoriety?
No, because it's not about competition. I mean, everything that happened with the last film was just lightning in a bottle, and this is just about, deepening this relationship with these characters and with these real people in my life. And I have two wonderful songs that I think are emotional and passionate and wonderfully written, and that tell Elsa's story in a way that no one else could, like the Lopez's.
What's going to surprise us about Elsa's journey this time around?
Like I said, you'll be surprised with how unabashedly and unapologetically she is about who she is and her powers and what she's destined to do. And she's also just badass. They're like superheroes. So Anna, yeah.
I mean, I look at the faces on the poster there, and it's great to see that power, that sense of like they know who they are.
They really do. Well, they're searching for it.
Yeah. All right. Well put. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
There you go. Elsa herself, voice of amazing performer, Idina Menzel, one of many here on the red carpet. We also had a chance to talk to Kristen Bell, talking about being able to play Anna gave her a sense to see the kind of princess that was missing from her life when she was a little girl, someone who was awkward and tripped over her feet and didn't always have the right thing to say. Josh Gad, Olaf himself, is also back there on the red carpet. So Frozen 2 is coming. Frozen was already the most popular animated movie of all time, $1.3 billion US. Can this compete? We will see, but nice to get a little preview at a fan event here in Toronto. Back to you, Dwight.
Great get. Thank you for that, Eli. We're taking a short break. We'll be right back. We are done with October, and it was a pretty good month, actually, Colette. So what does November hold for us?
It was a great month. I mean, weather-wise, we really lucked out, and especially when you compare it to last October. So November, well, it's a great question. Let's take a look at what a typical November looks like in terms of what we see with our temperatures. So an average daytime high, this is taking the highs from every day of the month and then averaging them out. So at the beginning of the month, it's going to be warmer than it is at the end of the month. For example, today's average high is 9.5. Well, for the month as a whole, this is what we're looking at. It's not that cold, right? 7.5 degrees, essentially. The daytime low just into the negatives. Average rainfall for the month of November, we tend to see just about 70 millimeters. And snowfall. We start to see snow, between 5 and 10 centimeters of snow accumulating in this month of November. We may see some of that coming up as we go Wednesday into Thursday. So we'll show you that. I want to show you the temperatures right now. I want you to take a really nice look. Remember what double digits look like. I'm not sure we're going to be seeing these for a while. And those winds today, this is what helped push those numbers up. And some of them still a little strong from the southwest. Hamilton coming in sustained around 30, back towards Chatham-Kent as well. For the city, it's kind of eased off. And where we have some of those stronger winds is where you can see as this system is kind of pushing through some of the heavier rains there as well, but drier conditions there from the city and then a little further northward until you get up into cottage country. Now, through the overnight, we'll see quite a bit of cloud cover. Could get a stray shower coming our way, but mostly I'm keeping that barrier northward there or seeing it from St. Catharines or southward. And even St. Catharines, you'll probably be doing okay once we get that first batch through here. So by tomorrow morning, doing okay. Now, tomorrow afternoon, having a look at what's happening, back towards the GTA, we should be seeing some sunshine in here. Again, a little different story because of some lake effect snow flurries that'll be coming through well to the north of us. Then into Wednesday, we start the day off quietly, but cold air moves in Tuesday night into Wednesday. So then you push in some moisture and see how through the GTA, we may get into some wet flurries moving through. Could even see some light accumulations because the temperatures will be cool enough. They are not cool tonight, so this is still Tuesday's really into that transition day. So overnight tonight, 5 to 6 degrees, 7 for St. Catharines. And then tomorrow afternoon, those temperatures, if anything, steady to coming down a little bit as we head into the afternoon hours. Yes, we'll be seeing them fall. We should get into some nice sunshine. But look what happens as that cold air makes its way in. We will see Tuesday night, the reading going down, the temperature -3. Wednesday's high only 4. That's why we'll probably see a bit of a mix there. And then, is this November? Yeah, Dwight, those are the highs and lows for the rest of this week that we're looking at.
I'm not impressed. Thanks, Colette. See you in a
But
bit.
you're not impressed by me?
No, the numbers, nothing to do with you.
I'm just giving you a hard
don't
time.
want to be mad at the messenger. We'll see you in a little bit.
All righty.
A new report from the Daily Bread Food Bank shows that the use of food banks by Mississauga residents is up 16%. I'm Talia Ricci, and coming up, we find out who's using them.
As the cost of living continues to rise and more people are leaving the city, the demand for access to food is spilling into the suburbs. There were over 1 million visits to food banks in the GTA last year, and today a new report says Toronto has the most users, but it's Mississauga that saw the highest increase in visits. Talia Ricci has more.
I feel that I am a part of this halal food bank.
Thank you.
It's very important to us. Emily, help me.
A monthly trip to a halal food bank in Mississauga helps support this family who arrived to Canada from Syria a couple of years ago.
A lot of challenges here. You can't do it by yourself. You need some help.
That need for help is increasing in areas outside of the city core. A report from the Daily Bread Food Bank shows in the past year, Mississauga has seen the highest increase in food bank visits at 16%. North York saw a 9% increase, and there was an 8% increase in Scarborough.
How are single adult households falling through the cracks? We have lots of programs and tax credits for families and for people with children, and now we need to look at how can we help this over half of clients who are single adults.
The report calls on all levels of government to strengthen social assistance, invest in affordable housing, and improve access to affordable childcare. Nichols says it was also the first time the survey asked about race.
Increasingly, it's an overrepresentation of racialized people using food banks.
There are 41 appointments at the Mississauga Halal Food Bank today, but those running the Muslim Welfare Center say they have locations across the GTA, and the number of people using their food banks has only increased since 2015.
Before we were covering only for Mississauga location, but now we have Brampton, we have Hamilton, we have all over Mississauga.
This food bank has had such a positive impact on Hussan. He says one day he hopes to work for a not-for-profit so that he can give back to the community that supported him.
All these people, they need food. It's very important to be like one family.
Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
Oh, your waterfront looks beautiful tonight. Hey, are we done with the double digits? We'll check in with Colette one last time to find out. Stay with us. We'll be right back. What's green, 50 feet tall, and smells like the holidays? It's the return of the Distillery Market's Christmas tree, of course.
This is my first experience seeing the tree being dropped into space. So it was super experience this morning. It's just absolutely lovely. Oh, the smell of this tree is unbelievable. Oh my God, it smells, this is Christmas. Today is actually Christmas. It's fabulous.
Okay, today's not actually Christmas, but we get what she means. That is a real tree, donated by Forest, Ontario. It took the group 3 months to find the perfect one. This 50-foot balsam fir caught their eye in Bancroft, Ontario. It was on private property, so in return, they gave the homeowner saplings to plant. Oh, I can't wait to get down there and check that out.
Yeah, I love her enthusiasm. Maybe not so much so for the weather that also comes with this,
yes,
right?
you know, the snow and that kind of stuff. We wish it would just snow like Christmas Eve and then Christmas, and then we're good. But we know it doesn't work that way,
There are some
Colin.
of us, yes, that do kind of like it to go that way. It never does, you're right. And, you know, it's not bad tonight or tomorrow. We're just kind of in the transition into some much colder air that is going to be moving in. So tonight, 6 degrees. In fact, that's above seasonal. Tomorrow, the temperature barely changes, maybe comes up a degree or so, and then we'll be falling in the afternoon hours. And although there may be a few stray showers a little later on this evening, I don't expect too much into tomorrow, so mostly we'll be getting some sunshine in the afternoon. And then the temperatures plummet. We're going to lows in the negatives, Dwight.
Thanks, Colin. That's it for our show tonight. It's not her fault.
Doesn't mean it.
Winter had to get here. Mike Weiss has you covered at 11. We'll see you back here tomorrow.